Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming today, December 6th Regional Board meeting. I want to recognize we're holding the meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. For those of you who have tuned in at the regularly scheduled time, I apologize, our earlier meetings went a little late. So we have the agenda. From what I understand, one item 10.3 has been identified and is going to be moved to the consent agenda. There was no opposition to that at the committee level. So having that now item 8.8.
Yes.
Okay. Now the 10.3 will be item 8.8. Do we have
among the agenda as proposedly amended?
Seconded, but sorry, Director Elliott.
I would like to move that we have under business arising from correspondence the 6.1, because I wanted to propose that we do a letter of support. Okay,
well, we can take care of that when we get there too. You can
okay, I thought you had to say.
You don't need to.
Okay.
So we have a mover. Do we have a second? You seconded the
sure.
agenda. Okay, thank you, Director Elliott. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Minutes of November 22nd board meeting. Are there any errors or omissions?
Oh, moved. Sorry.
Seeing none, Director Gisborne moves it, seconded by Director Elliott. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Same thing for the special regional board meeting November 29th. Any errors or omissions?
So moved.
So Director Gisborne moves, Director Elliott seconds. All in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. No delegations or inquiries, no unfinished business. We have one item of correspondence, which I understand, Director Elliott. Do you have any business arising from said correspondence?
Yes, please. I'd like to move that we write a letter of support for the PACT team, the peer assisted care teams, and it's funding that can be provided to us to implement a PACT here in our region. That means that we could have peer assisted responses to mental health calls, and they really help out in areas where they're at as far as de-escalating and making sure that people are feeling a little more comfortable when people show up to help them, and can de-escalate things, reduce visits to hospital.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Director Gisborne seconds.
Apologies.
Elliott would like to.
Apologies, Chair. I was speaking to the motion without a seconder. Anyway, I think it makes very good sense to provide support, and I'd like to ask the board to support this motion.
Okay. Director McCormick.
Thank you. Just to add that the letter would go to the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Okay. Any other discussion? CAO?
Through the chair, is it at the discretion then of the QRD to use this proposed template as we see fit?
I would think so. I mean, any objection to?
I would assume so.
Circling a few things.
Yes, through the chair. My concern is just that in this letter, in the first paragraph, knowing that it has been presumably already endorsed at the city, it says, "We understand and appreciate council's commitment." So I'm wondering if the QRD does something, are we also making some type of unknown commitment?
I can't answer that. I don't know. But we can have some license to appropriate letter of support.
Through the chair, that's what I would suggest, is that we have some discretion to say what this board wants to say without putting themselves inadvertently on the hook for funding or in kind or whatever that case may be.
Okay, Director Dowd.
So as far as I'm aware, the city hasn't made any commitment other than to support the existence of a team.
Okay. Director McCormick, did I see your hand up there?
Yes, thank you. And I don't think we should make any commitment for assistance either, but merely to say that we support their application.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right, great. I think staff has direction. Director Gisborne?
Yeah, I just want to echo the other directors. I'm fine with the letter of support, but at this time I don't think it's a good idea to start altering our like social planning service or anything like that. So I hope that will of the board has been expressed to our CIO for the wording of the letter. That way it's not being misconstrued in any way.
I believe it has. Great. Seeing no other hands, all in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Consent agenda. So we have the consent agenda in front of us and you have the opportunity to pull anything off of it. I remind people that we did discuss a lot of these things at a great extent at the committee of the whole. So I think they were all unanimous decisions. But if you'd like to pull anything, this is the time. Director Gisborne.
8.4.
8.4 will now be 10.1.
9.1.
I'm sorry, 9.1. Is there anything else anybody would like to pull? Seeing none, can I see a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Director Adamson and second by Director Paul. Any other discussion? All in favor? Not opposed, motion carries. Okay. So the old 8.4. Do we have any new information to add to this, or we have the motion in front of us?
Mover in a second.
We need to have somebody move it or move an alternate motion. Director Doubt, seconded by Director Gisborne.
Yeah, now that it's on the floor, I'll
Okay, Director Gisborne.
thank you. Yeah, the committee of the whole, I had some concerns. I know I voted in favor, but I've had some more time to think about this policy. And if memory serves correctly, the primary kind of concern amongst the board was enabling board members to be able to get information on their cell phones so that we could update our calendars as to what's going on. And that way, you know, it helps the board members not miss meetings. There's a lot more to this policy, but one of the things that came up at the committee level was that, you know, I use a desktop computer for a lot of the work I do, and a fraction of the work I do is regional district related, but there's a lot of other work I do that's related to other things. When I checked the policy and from that discussion, it was that, well, no, I wouldn't be able to use that desktop computer under this new policy. I get the right one. I think it was 1.18. But, and this is where I see Nancy Schmeister, maybe she can help clarify that. My understanding is I can use my personal device if it's a mobile device and it has access to, you know, mobile cellular data. But if it's like a desktop device, I can't. Is that understanding correct?
Commissioner Schmeister, yes.
Through the chair, the point here is that you cannot download any confidential, private, non-public information onto a personal device. It's not to say that you cannot use your personal device to read your email on Outlook through the web, which is an option for you, or that you can't, you know, open up non-in-camera agendas or open your email, obviously, as long as you're not opening some kind of a link that will download something that will be then retained on your personal desktop.
So to the question about the phone, am I able to access in-camera information on a phone?
No, and I mean, it's not to say that every single item that you open up is going to end up downloading some file or some document onto your phone. There's not you know, an assurance that is going to be what's going to happen every time you do something. But to be safe, we are basically saying, ideally, you are not using, not ideally, you are not using a personal device to open in-camera or non-public information as is defined in the policies. In case they end up downloading something that is going to then sit and be retained in a folder or on your personal device, be it your desktop or your personal cell phone.
Great.
Okay.
Any other hands up? Seeing none? Oh, sorry. Oh, Director McCormick.
Yes. On that same point, what about laptops?
They're mobile.
From what I'll answer, Mr. Meister answer.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, laptops, desktops, cell phones, tablets, any other device. Basically, if it's your personal device, it should not contain QRD non-public information. Meaning something that would be private information as defined essentially through FOIPA.
Okay. Seeing no other.
Yeah, this one last question.
Okay, yeah.
But on my understanding, if I then choose to go with the hard copies of agendas and in-camera agendas, I can still get those and store them into my personal filing cabinet. You know, between the time of when I get the document and when the agenda occurs, because, you know, if I get an in-camera agenda, I have to make sure it's secured so that, you know, no one can access it between the time of them, you know, when I get it and when the meeting occurs, and then, you know, whenever the document is destroyed. So I think that is something that is still available to directors if they have, you know, technological issues or concerns around security. I do believe our board procedure bylaw still allows that. I guess that's a question for the corporate officer. And I think I got that answered at committee of the whole, but I don't quite remember. It's been a long day.
Officer.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, we provide them 24 or 48 hours in advance. The one concern would be that you would be limited to changes, so you would have to come and pick up changes that had occurred. So,
okay.
Of course.
Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Director Gisborne and Director McCormick opposed. Motion carries. So moving down to resolutions. Item 10.1, amendment of qathet Regional District Policy number 1.9, board photographs. Does somebody like to move?
I'll move that the board adopt option 1 to update the qathet Regional District Policy number 1.9, board photographs.
Thank you. Seconded by Director McCormick. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Dr. Gisborne.
I think the existing policy is fine. And I believe that in any organization, you get a picture at the end, just like any sports team or class photos or those kind of things. And I think it should be the same for the board. And the existing policy right now, I believe, also allows the option to take a group photo at the beginning if the board wanted to, I think. But I'm fine with the existing policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Director McCormick?
Thank you. Just to seek an answer to that, does the existing policy allow us to do a picture at the beginning if we so choose?
Yes, thank you, Director McCormick, through the chair. I just wanted to confirm that the existing policy does not explicitly say at the beginning of term, it says at the end of term.
Thank you.
So what would then be the process if the group wanted to do it at the beginning?
At this time, we wouldn't be able to utilize that without incurring additional fees. So my understanding is that the current policy as written doesn't allow us to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Director Elliott.
So I recall when we were implementing photos at the beginning of the term, we all kind of showed up around the same place, around the same time to get photos taken, but there was no group photo of the regional district. Is that correct? Just individuals?
Corporate officer.
Yeah, if I can, I think when our policy at that time was not to take a group photo at the beginning, and that photo was taken prior to the city council appointing members to this board.
Right. Which could happen again in the future as well, as like the city council not having appointed their members prior to group photo taking that day. So if we change the policy to say to do it at the beginning and the group has not been formed yet, does that mean we then can't collaborate our photographing at the beginning of the term along with the city, or we have to have our own day, and does that impact costs? And
corporate officer.
Thank you, through the chair. I think this change was made so that we could next time schedule it all together and have everybody show up and have both group photos taken at the same time.
Even if that means the whole photo frame takes place later after the city gets their appointments done. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Director Gisborne opposed. Motion carries. Item 10.2, standing committee and board meeting schedule. Do I have a move, Director McCormick? Thank you. Seconded by Director Fall. Any discussion? Director Gisborne.
Thank you. This is the, I think, second instance where we've had planning. I think it was planning. Multiple meetings in a row. I think this happened, 2 weeks ago, where we've actually had the meetings kind of spilling into each other. The start times are, not really falling at the proper start time. Today's board meeting, I think we're a half hour late. Fortunately, we don't have a bunch of public delegations showing up. But when we do run into those situations, I'm sure the public would be a little annoyed that we're starting late. And I've been here since just after 10 for our first meeting at 10:30. I'm at the point where I'm starting to get an optical migraine from looking at all these screens with the bright lights. And I echo one of the things that our parliamentarian trained us on, Ellie Mina, where he said, you shouldn't be making decisions by exhaustion. So I do like this schedule more than what we were dealing with earlier in the year, where we were having a lot more crammed in one day. This is a step in the right direction to kind of have it broken up. But I still don't like this schedule where we're having planning, finance, and regional board all in the same day. Or in today's case, planning, finance, regional hospital district, and then board all in the same day. It's causing some mental strain on myself, and I'm not sure if it's causing any strain on anyone else. But I echo the concerns raised by Ellie Mina that we shouldn't make decisions by exhaustion. And I would be more in favor of having the meetings more spaced out. So that way we can be giving full cognitive power to our decision-making, because we have some very big and expensive items that occur at this board.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Dr. Elliott.
The way we have Wednesdays, 2 Wednesdays of the month, is easier to accommodate people working and being on a board at the same time. I have a ton of committee work to do, not just here for appointments, but also over at the city. And if we use up more days, it makes it harder for people to earn a living, harder to work at the same time, and harder to find days to fit all of the other meetings in that I have to attend. And so while I'm sympathetic to this harder day, I think moving it would make meeting all my obligations harder. And so if I have to set aside a day for regional district meetings, it's good to get a lot done during that day and not have to set aside more days to do it.
Okay. Thank you, Director Dowd.
Yeah, I understand the efficiency of having all the meetings together on one day. But when you can't tell somebody what time your meeting is going to start, and you're a public body, that's a problem. And I share Director Gisborne's issue with that. If we tell people our meeting is going to start at 3 or 3:30 or 10:30, that's when the meeting should start. And if we schedule our day so that we can predict that we're just going to have to figure out how the day goes, when our meeting is going to start, that's going to be an inconvenience for the public. It's going to be an inconvenience for people who are coming to make presentations. People like the hospital, Vancouver Coastal Health, who like to make their presentations by video, BC Ferries, other groups that want to join in and want to be able to schedule the time of day when they're going to participate. That's inconvenient. So we should either set aside enough time to cover all of the things that are going to have on our lengthier agendas, because we're having fewer meetings every month. The agendas get longer. We're going to have to set more time than we have right now. Finance committees are generally taking a lot longer than they used to take. So getting quite regular that the finance committee that's supposed to have a break at the end before the other meetings doesn't have a break at the end. As a matter of fact, it goes over time. And that's something I think we need to address, either by spacing them out, starting earlier, or going later with the later start times, like moving the regional hospital district to 4 o'clock and the committee the whole 5 or 6 o'clock. You know, we should do something so that we can tell people what time the meeting is going to start. There's been at least 2 meeting dates in a row where we've been starting meetings late and out of order. I think we should do something about that.
Okay, thank you, Director Powell.
Thank you, Chair. And I just to follow up on Director Dout's comment, I think one of the ways we can deal with this on this schedule would be that the chairs, at least of Finance Committee and Committee of the Whole, kind of look, not have a discussion about whether to pause the meeting, like we had a while, in the previous meeting before this, really just to say, if there's a meeting starting at 3 and it's 2:45, just say we're pausing. There's enough items we're not going to delay in. And I think starting the next meeting, because the delegations are often at the start. So unless there's a necessary reason to carry on, just to say pause and we'll come back to it after, because often we're at the items at the end. And that would maybe mean to encourage that the meetings, longer agenda meetings where there's other people involved, consultants or public, we make sure that's up front and that's dealt with. So that's one way we can deal with it, is just make sure we're consistent and have the chairs be encouraged with support from the board to just say, it's 2:45 or it's 3:15 or whatever, we're pausing and we'll come back and give a bit of a break. So I think that would be good. And I'm willing to try this. We've tried it only for a couple months. I think the schedule does work well for me. It works well for people who do have other work obligations. It's a lot easier to carve out a day of the week, because I have to do the same thing with my other work. I have people who say, okay, what day can we meet on? Generally, there's some flexibility. It's not infinite. So we say, okay, Mondays is for this project and Thursdays is for that project. So that's how my life is. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. I like the suggestion. I think we can just take that as an informal rule. If we feel we need to establish as part of policy, we can do that at a later time, but just, we know 2:45. I've got Director Gisborne and then Director Powell.
Yeah, my earlier points were about the efficiency of the board and not my personal work life. But I have heard a number of comments about, carving out a day for your personal, from your personal work life so that you can attend the board meetings. As many of you know, I am a farmer. I got a farm. Work still needs to be done. The animals still need to be fed. The work still needs to happen on the farm. And when I have to take a whole day off to do board meetings all day, I'm putting that responsibility onto my wife and my mother and the other family members. And I have 2 little kids and a third one on the way. And when these meetings go late, I get up in the morning, say goodbye to the family, and I come home after they're in bed. And that puts a great deal of strain on my wife and on my family. And I am hearing complaints about it at home. And I just wanted the board to know that, because these meetings are going very long. And when things happen on the farm, because that's what happens on farms, the animals can't just say, well, I'll take a day and not get fed. It's putting the work on someone else. And that's what's occurring, because I don't get a day off on the farm. And when I'm here working for the district, that means someone else is doing the work. And I'm not able to go home and relieve my family from those obligations. And that's how it impacts me on a personal level. And it also becomes fairly exhausting to sit for a whole day. And then you get home and I haven't done any physical work. And I'm then up for several more hours because I haven't done anything physical all day. And it's hard for me to sit for this long. So that's That's how it affects me personally. The first thing was how it affects the decision-making of the board. These points are how it affects me personally. And in addition, yes, we can say at a committee of the whole or a finance committee to say, okay, we'll pause this meeting and we'll circle back around after our board meeting is completed. However, we got to keep in mind that members of the public do want to attend our meetings, even if it's just virtually. And if they're watching at home and they're like, well, I'm really interested in item 4.12, and they come on at 2 o'clock to watch the meeting, and then we say, okay, we're pausing. We're not even going to get to 4.12 until after 2 more meetings, and, hop back online at 7 o'clock tonight. Like, that's not fair to the public that are interested in those specific items. So we shouldn't, I don't think it's a good plan to be essentially pausing a meeting so that we can then start a couple of other meetings and then go back to the meeting several hours later and go, oh yeah, we went from committee to board back to committee. And at the end, I remember last week, we were getting exhausted and kind of snappy with each other. And I'm concerned about how that's going to affect the decorum of the assembly moving forward. So I don't actually support this schedule. And I would actually like to see something a little bit more spaced out.
Okay, thank you, Director Dowd.
Yeah, and I just, I'm kind of willing to accept this just because I don't want to be speaking about the meeting schedules until June of this year. We keep coming back to them all the time. We spend a lot of time talking about meeting schedules and being late for the next meeting. But, I think we have to remember what we're doing here. We're not here because we're trying to fit some meetings in here into our life and make these meetings convenient to our life. We're representing the public, and the meetings are meant to be open to the public, which has meant that the public should have access to the meetings, and they should be able to predict that when we're going to be having a meeting, when it's going to start, and some idea that it's going to continue to the end. And well, the suggestion that the chair will say, well, we're going to pause the meeting because another one is coming up now, is nice. But today in the finance committee meeting, I suggested once that we were overlapping the time limit, and there was another meeting and we decided to keep going. Then there was a motion to pause the meeting, and the group decided that the things we were talking about were too important to pause the meeting. We're going to continue on, and the next 2 meetings started late. So, I think if we're going to have a policy, we should create a policy that says if there is a scheduled meeting, any other meeting will end 15 minutes before the next one starts. And that would be the end. And then the next thing that comes up for that, be it a finance committee or committee of the whole or a hospital district meeting on the agenda, would be at the next scheduled meeting. Don't add it on at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night when everybody's forgotten what you were talking about. But, end the meeting, create a policy. We're going to schedule a regional hospital district meeting to start at 3. Any other meetings ends at 2:45. That I think would solve the problem, and we wouldn't spend another half hour debating whether or not we should pause the meeting so the next meeting can start on time.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. McCormick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm okay either way. I do find these long days very tiring by the time you get to the end, especially if you've been on a ferry and on the go, since 9 o'clock in the morning to get here. So it does make for a long day. However, I like the idea of, having a rule, I guess, more than a policy, that we end at least 15 minutes, take a pause. But I don't believe we should arbitrarily decide whether we just take a pause in the meeting or refer everything to the following month's meeting. I think that we should do on a case-by-case situation, depending on the time sensitivity of the items that haven't been discussed. So I don't really want to be any more prescriptive than what we've got here. I'm willing to live with it. I'm also willing to revisit it, say in a few months' time. So I don't know if that has to be a separate recommendation or if it would be reviewed annually, or how does that review take place to see if it's working for everyone?
I mean, CAO can correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine we could bring it up at any time if it proves to be a challenge. So,
I don't mind Director Doubt's suggestion that we have kind of a rule that meetings end at a certain time, and if we've had too many things on the agenda to finish the meeting that time, that we can decide if we need a special meeting or it bumps to the next meeting or what have you, based on the, you know, the timing requirements of the items. And we end and we start our next meetings on time, and we do not tack them on to the end of the day, because that can become overly long and it's really hard for people. So it wasn't here at the RD, but our meeting from the committee of the whole last night at the city, we didn't go home until after 10 o'clock. My children who go to school, they didn't go to bed on time because our mom wasn't home, right? And so I don't have a wife to offload my responsibilities to, or a husband or anybody else. So when I don't come home, my kids don't do what they're supposed to do, and we all get really tired. So, you know, if we can not, you know, if there's too many agenda items for a meeting to finish on time, I do like the idea that we just say it's over and we move those agenda items to another meeting. So I would be in favor of that kind of a rule.
Okay, well, what we have in front of us is a motion about the schedule as is. I think we should do.
That could be a separate
vote on
motion.
this, and then that could be a separate item if somebody wants to bring that forward.
I could write a motion for a future meeting that would cover that.
There you go. Okay, so the motion in front of us, I don't see any more hands up, so let's vote on it. All in favor? Any opposed? Director Gisborne opposed. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Item 10.3. Oh, no, that's done. Move that to the consent agenda. 10.4. Appointments. Do I have somebody who would like to move the recommendation? Director Elliott, seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion? Director Gisborne.
Yeah, one second, let me bring up the proper. Wait, that's the wrong one. Schedule A. Here we go. Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Committee on Solid Waste and Circular Economy. I know the acronym is absolutely terrible. I attended it 2 Fridays ago. Starting to get forgetful. Myself and Mr. Schwab were in attendance. We adopted our terms of reference. My kind of understanding is that it's going to be 2, maybe 3 meetings a year. It's designed to, take what's going on in various regional districts, solid waste management plan advisory committees, and elevate it to the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities level, where there'll then be some discussions, and if there's issues for advocacy, it then gets recommended back to regional districts to then potentially put motions forward for AVICC. So having Director Elliott, who is also on the Solid Waste Management Plan Monitoring Advisory Committee, I think is a really good thing, because it'll help have those 2 connections. But there is one other piece of information that the board needs to consider. The terms of reference says that we need to appoint a representative, and we need to appoint an alternate for that committee. So right now we have Director Elliott, and we should also have an alternate. And I would actually be willing to be the alternate for that. And when I attended the meeting, there were directors and alternates in attendance, as well as the regional district staff. I actually joked with Cowichan and Valley. They had one of those owl things, and I was like, wow, do you guys have quorum? Like, they had a full room packed in there to be a part of that meeting. So I know I'm not on the Solid Waste Management Plan Monitoring Advisory Committee, but with Director Elliott, I think she can help relay that information to the committee. And since I've been working with the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Committee on Solid Waste and Circular Economy, I would be happy to be the alternate if that works.
You need a motion for that? I would make that motion.
Sure, so
Unless Director Brander would like to be, or
Yeah, so just,
Well, the continuity would be great.
sure,
so just adding that to this,
Exactly.
Yeah.
add it to Schedule A.
okay.
An amendment.
All right. So I need an amendment to Schedule A to add the alternate.
Including the amendment to add Director Gisborne as the alternate.
Okay, so that's the motion we,
yeah, sure, I'll put forward that as an amendment.
okay,
Second.
sure, sounds good. Any discussion on,
The amendment.
does everybody understand what we're doing here? It's to amend the Schedule A so that we have an alternate as well as the primary, I guess. Great, no hands up, so all in favor? None opposed, motion carries. So back to the original motion then, correct?
Correct.
About the appointments as noted in Schedule A.
I'll move the original.
It's already moved and
Seconded?
seconded, so it's just if there's any more discussion.
And I had also a bit of discussion with Director Fall about Coastal Invasive Species Committee. I'm not seeking to be the appointee for that committee, but I would also like to work with Director Fall, for maybe potentially next year. So I don't think we need a motion for alternate on that committee, but I would like to continue the conversation with Director Fall on invasive species because it does have a bit of an overlap with agriculture, but it's, as I understand that committee has a very interesting and unique structure. So something I need to wrap my head around.
Whatever you guys work out on your own, that's fine by me, but I don't think we did a motion for that.
Yeah.
So is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Great, no reports, bylaws, new business, question period. Mr. Galinsky. No, Mr. Galinsky.
It'll be on the road.
Hello,
There he is.
Chair, sorry, I was muted. I
Okay.
don't, thank you for the opportunity. I'm still with you. I don't have any questions at this time.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. So we have an in-camera session. Somebody want to make that motion for us? Director Gisborne.
Sure. I move that the board move in camera, the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district. K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a regional district service that are at their preliminary stages, and that, in the view of the board, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district if they were held in public. L, discussions with regional district officers and employees respecting regional district objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under section 98, annual regional district report. And N, the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed, motion carries. We're going in camera.
Recording in progress.
Chair. Oh, no, for sure. I would say the recording in progress the same creepy voice. Thank you, Chair. We're going to open session.
Okay, board would like to rise and report on the following. The board has reappointed David Ham to the Tahiti Island Solid Waste Plan Monitoring and Advisory Committee for a term of 3 years ending December 31st, 2026. And the board reappointed Alan Rebane and Ellen DeCastmaker to the Agricultural Advisory Committee as representatives of the Powell River Farmers Agricultural Institute for a 2-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. With that, we've reached the end of our agenda, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya, Andrew. See ya, Sandy.
Good meeting, everybody.
Recording stopped.
Ready to rock.